guys, so to complete the square, a lot of people might say it's a little complicated, but it's not really, as long as you follow our two basic steps. Step number one, you need to make sure that the constant is alone. Now, what is a constant? A constant is the number that has no letters. In this case, negative 16 is the constant. How do we leave it alone? Simple. You're going to add a 16 just to leave it alone. So we're left with 2x squared minus 4x. And because we're completing the square, we're going to put a square here because we're completing that square equals 16. Now, that was step number one. Constant has to be alone. Step number two, the coefficient of x squared is 1. Now, in this case, guys, the coefficient of x squared, it actually has a 2. How do you leave x squared with a 1? Simple. Divide by 2. But what you do on one thing, you have to do it to all of them. Now, there's nothing here, so there's no point dividing by 2 because we don't know that number yet. But let's go ahead and get started. Divide by 2, that will give me x squared minus 2x plus something. We don't know that something. But that equals 2/8. Okay. So we are ready to complete the square. What we mean by a square, guys, is we want to create a perfect square. I don't know if you guys remember what a perfect square is. We talked about it a few units ago. A perfect square, let's refresh your memory. It's when you have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Once you have it set up this way, your basic factor is just simply a plus b squared. In other words, the end numbers. So in this case, let's write that formula down. A squared in a different color. A squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Now let's figure out what each one is. Notice this is your a, so we know that the a is equal to x. We know that. How do we find b? Very simple. Notice that the b is also in the middle. And notice that everything is equal to each other. So can't we just say that negative 2x is equal to positive 2ab? Let's just put a positive to emphasize it's positive. And let me ask you something else. If we already know that a is equal to x, couldn't we just swap the a with an x? Don't forget the b was there. Couldn't we do that? Basically. And let's find b. How do we leave the b alone? Simple. Divide by 2x on both sides. This cancels. The x's cancel. So my b is equal to negative 1. You found b, guys. Congratulations. Well, if we know this is a b squared, well, what's negative 1 squared? So, in fact, the square you're going to complete here, this is actually going to be a positive 1. We're not done, though. Watch out. Because you just added a 1 out of nowhere. You magically put a 1 on this side of the equation. Can you do that? No, that's illegal in the math world. So if you want to add a 1 to the left side, what do you think we have to do? You need to add a 1 to the right side. So let's keep going, guys. So we have x squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 9. And I already told you guys, once you do the perfect square, you know what to turn it to. So my a in this case is x. My b is in this case is negative 1 squared. I wrote a plus negative 1 because remember it's supposed to be a plus here. But does it really matter? Nah, you can just say a minus 1. And that equals to a 9. Now all you have to do to find x is, let's solve for x. Let's square root, do the opposite of a square. We have x minus 1 equals, be careful here because what did we say 9 could be? The square root of 9. It could be 3 because 3 squared is 9. Or it could be negative 3 because negative 3 squared is also 9. So my two possible options is x minus 1 equals 3 and x minus 1 equals negative 3. And when we solve for each, we have x equals 4, or solve this one plus 1, x equals negative 2. And these are our two possible solutions for this problem. Now, I know that was a pretty long problem. And why do we need to learn this long procedure? Because, guys, this is the basis. This is the origin of the quadratic formula, a very important formula in the mathematical community. So that's it for today. This is how you complete the square with a simple problem.